Or just in general, the way that families stay together. One of the things that was really surprising to me when I first met my husband was that his mother and father lived in separate houses in separate towns, and yet they're still married. They aren't anymore, that's a whole other story, but they had been living together in one home, and then my husband's father opened up an English school, and at that time he moved to a different location where the school was being built. And where the school was being built was also like a home slash school, so he just moved in there and they lived separately. And then when my husband went to the States from middle school, he was there all the way through middle school, through high school, and then into college. In the earlier years, when he was in middle school and high school, his mom came with him, and she enrolled into high school so that she could get a visa, and then later college or university so that she could have a visa as well. And that whole time, of course, their family was apart, and that was considered totally normal because obviously the father couldn't come along with them to be with them. He had to keep his business going here in Japan. So, but when they all got back together again, nobody thought to say, hey, let's all get rid of one house and move back in together or anything like that. Everybody just stayed separate, which is kind of strange. And I'd have to say, probably not, that's not always the case with most situations, but it does point out something that is, in at least the beginning, really common here, which is that a lot of fathers don't live with their families. They get a job offer in a bigger city and they move out there and get a small place to live, and they just do their thing there and send paychecks to support their families back home. The priority in Japanese thinking is that the children are the first things that matter. So disrupting their school life, moving them away from friends is considered taboo, and you never do it. Even if it means that the parents have to separate, physically, and not be together for a while. And I guess they don't consider it, this is sad, right? But they don't consider it a loss for the child that the dad's not around. And, things are changing these days, but it used to be that with fathers working such long hours, and being so exhausted by the weekend that they didn't really want to do much with their family, the time for children and father bonding time is a lot less than it is in the States. But like I said, it's changing now, which is a good thing. I'm super happy to see it changing. More fathers are saying, forget this, I'm not staying late, I'm going home to my family. It used to be considered a real big norm that you had to go drinking with everybody at your office every day of the week, but a lot of people are not doing that, and they're going home and hanging out with their kids. You hear some very rare, very, very rare cases even where fathers stay home with their children and the moms are the ones that are making more money. Again, very rare, but definitely kind of a strange way to look at the way that families are, managed. I know in the States, the number one priority usually is if mom and dad are happy in their relationship, and so whatever they can do to stay together and be happy, if mom gets a job somewhere or dad gets a job somewhere, they just move. Everybody, come on, let's go. Get up, pack up, forget your friends, get out of here, you'll make new ones. It's not even given a second thought. Whereas here, there's a lot of families that I've seen and met whose fathers had the choice to have a job someplace else, and they did go away, and the families were left behind without a dad. And then later, usually, they do kind of all come together, but that's a long time to be apart. I know one of my mother-in-law's friends has a very similar situation. She lived separate from her husband for a long time, and then he retired, and it was like, okay, well, I guess it's time to go back together here, and they're having a hard time making a go of it because they've been living separate for 20 plus years and not really spending that much time together aside from occasional vacations and weekends. So kind of a strange way to be doing things, I think. But I'd be curious to hear what everybody around the world does. What are the priorities placed on? I think, in the States, it's always that thinking that, if mom and dad aren't happy, then the kids can't be happy. And we kind of, sometimes, especially, depending on the kind of job or if you're military, moving around is kind of a given for those kinds of things. I don't think it messes people up too much. I've met lots of military kids and they're all fine and good. So, but I don't know. I know it is traumatizing to have to move when you're a kid. It's traumatizing to have to leave your friends behind. That is hard. And obviously whatever can be done to prevent that from happening, I think is ideal. But I would much rather know that my children had their dad around too, though. So, but I'd be curious what you guys think about that. I know in our case, you know, it was a long time coming probably that they'd get a divorce, and they did. So, and that's, you know, another thing that's adding to the problem I explained to you guys on Friday, because that's always trouble to try to deal with stuff when you have people who are separated. But, yeah, you know, people do get divorced here. It's getting more common. But then a lot of times people don't remarry, whereas, you know, you see that much more common in the States. And it's tricky because for women especially, it's hard to get a job if you're a certain age, meaning if you're over 30, you can't get a job. There's very few job choices available. So it's a tough place, a tough environment, even if your marriage is really bad or dangerous or life-threatening for yourself. I know a lot of women think twice about leaving because it would be so difficult for them to support their children, and it would be so you know, financially impossible to support their children if they tried to get away and do things on their own, which is a sad side to things, obviously. We want that to change. But I know the rate of divorce is increasing. I think it's a little bit before we can catch up with the States. I think it's 50% or close to that right now there. So,